This is a Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 2nd of December 2021, and I am 2J.
I'm Tuam.
And I am Miss K. Again, in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. Daily Nation, secret card in Raila Oka talks. The Standard, IEBC fires warning shot on 2022 polls. The Star, MPs pushing to legalize sex trade. And finally, People Daily, Uhuru all but endorses Raila.
And it was actually that People Daily headline that inspired my thoughts today.
Right.
Because a few weeks ago, I had declassified Uhuru Kenyatta's anti-corruption plan. I explained that the president is identifying all of the places where corruption is taking place, removing the enabler, and closing the tap.
Correct.
And this is why the president has been so strategic with his actions. And he asked, why are tea farmers receiving 41 shillings per kilo instead of 91 shillings? Who is stealing that 50 bob?
Yes.
Why is electricity 24 shillings per kilowatt instead of 16 shillings? Where is that 8 shillings going?
Karen.
Is this the work of the hustler cartel? It cannot be a coincidence that so many of these scandals are linked to allies of the deputy president.
Ooh.
And the president is not doing this because corruption is bad. In fact, Professor Mutahi Nguni has told us that if you try to fight corruption, it won't be polite and fight back. Instead, corruption corrupts back. It's like a hydra snake.
Yes.
You may cut off one head, but 8 more will grow back in its place.
Correct.
And so Uhuru Kenyatta has opted to evict corruption.
Yes.
Uprooted completely.
Yes.
And the reason is simple. Corruption is slowing us down. In fact, according to the EACC, Kenya loses about 30% of its budget due to corruption. And who ends up paying for this greed? Kenyans. So the question is this. After his 8 years, who will preserve and continue what Uhuru Kenyatta has started?
Yeah.
And this issue of continuity reminded me of the Great Wall of China. So I think we all know. It is known as the world's largest man-made structure. And construction for it started around like 700 BC.
Yeah.
And it was continued and pursued by 7 different dynasties over the course of almost 2,000 years.
Correct.
Emperors came and went, wars and battles were fought, but each leader took the responsibility of continuing the legacy that was started before them and improving upon it.
Correct.
And that's because each leader understood the importance of this great wall. Apart from the obvious safety function, the purpose was to protect China's economic development and cultural progress. It was to safeguard trading routes such as the Silk Road and secure the transmission of information and the transportation of goods.
Yeah.
And when we look at China today, it's obvious. It's one of the largest economies in the world.
Correct.
And this is where the lessons and the blueprint of the handshake lie. The Great Wall of China wasn't always great. It took years of stability and stamina for many leaders to complete it. So Uhuru Kenyatta is simply looking at 2022 and beyond.
Yes.
And he's asking himself, who will pursue and make greater the legacy that he has started? And I think that there is no surprise that since Mr. Ruto left the government, Uhuru is succeeding. Am I wrong? Oh, am I right?
Let me tell you, people, Ruto is incapable of taking care of Kikuyus. And we say this for 2 reasons. One, it is because Kikuyus are high maintenance. And 2,
Baby
because,
girls.
yes, and 2, because Ruto simply has not made enough money to look after them. And my thinking here is based on Political Economy 101, the Fortall School of Government stratification of the stages of capitalism. It is a hybrid of the Marxian and libertarian understanding of the 4 stages of capitalism. Consider my thoughts. There are 4 stages of capitalism a nation must attain to be at the top of any economic totem pole. I will start with the lowest form of capitalism. It is mercantile capitalism. This is the form of capitalism where traders are king. It is where traders make money by way of selling merchandise or brokerage or making deals. In fact, this is the level Ruto is at right now.
Yeah.
Hustling.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs, yeah?
Entrepreneuring. He became a billionaire by making deals, not by selling chicken. The third lowest form of capitalism is manufacturing capitalism. The form of capitalism where people get rich by importing raw materials to manufacture, say, cooking oil, like Vimal Shah has done with Bitco. The second highest form of capitalism is industrial capitalism. This is where individuals become wealthy by sourcing all factors of production locally and producing them in large volumes. These are the people that can shift a whole country's construction sector by supporting locally made steel, for example. A good example for this is Narendra Raval. And then lastly, we have the highest form of capitalism, which is finance capitalism. This is where individuals make money by selling money. They, or the custodian of the form of this form of capitalism, are banks or fegi. And you know who owns banks in this country? Kikuyus. In fact, 3 out of 4 banks in Kenya are owned by Kikuyus.
Of the 4 largest.
Of the 4 largest banks. Equity Bank, NCBA, Cooperative Bank. If these 3 banks were to collapse today, all of sub-Saharan Africa would go into recession. And that's because the largest bank in sub-Saharan Africa is actually from Murang'a. In fact, without one of the big Kikuyu-owned banks, M-Pesa would never work. And therefore, the question begs, if Kikuyus own the largest form of capitalism, how can a man who's still at mercantile stage lead them? In any case, have you ever had a man from Sugoi ever owning a bank? 0. If all the 10 counties of central Kenya have a total GDP of $3.8 billion, which is the combined GDP of Burundi and South Sudan, what experience would a chicken seller have running them? The point herein is simple. William Ruto is incapable of ruling people that have attained the highest form of wealth. And that's because, according to Political Economy 101, he is still grappling with the last stage of capitalism, which is brokerage. Raila Odinga, on the other hand, is at industrial capitalism level. His actions can shift the price of LPG gas. In other words, he is a don over there, and that's a big thing. However, if Ruto's chicken seller thing, if Ruto's chicken can catch foot and mouth disease, do you think he would cause a blip in demand and supply of East African chicken? 0. And therefore, Kikuyus, please don't be Ruto as a sponsor. He will zumbua you.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even know where to comment on that one, so I will just leave it hanging there for us.
No, I think the point is you cannot put 3.8 billion in a wheelbarrow.
Oh, that's true. You will not carry it. According to The Standard today, IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati pulled out of the multi-sectoral consultative forum on election preparedness because reporting to the forum would strip IEBC of its constitutionally guarded mandate to conduct and oversee elections. At least that's what he told the Senate's Justice and Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee. And yes, IEBC is independent and it needs to continue to be so, so that it can hold credible elections. But just like in 2017, the problems with IEBC have nothing to do with reporting to state agencies and everything to do with its commissioners. So on the basis of this headline, I'd like to talk about IEBC, the 2022 election, and the possibility of a black swan constitutional crisis. Now, the term black swan was popularized by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and he uses it to describe an unprecedented event that overturns established ways of thinking and that is easily explainable, but only in retrospect. It's not that these black swan events are totally unimaginable. It's that all of them hide in a blind spot outside our normal expectations so that when they happen, they blindside and astonish us. Some may say that the nullification of the 2017 election was a black swan. But once Maraga did it, it was easily explainable.
Oh, yes.
So now the Constitution provides a clear sequence and timeline for the presidential election. Using this timeline and a bit of history, we could make a prediction of how the election could play out in 2022. So walk through this scenario with me. So the 2022 elections will be held on 9th August. And the result will be released on 16th August. And we know for a fact that there will be a petition against the presidential election results at all stages. Then the court nullifies the election, just like they did in 2017. And we hold fresh elections in November, on November 7th. We go to court again, and the decision is upheld this time. But because there was no clear winner between Raila and Ruto, we have a runoff 30 days later on January 5th, 2023. And we go to court because Raila or Ruto or Okia Umtata is protesting the election process. But now we're in January. And by the time the court gives its decision, it will be February 2nd, 2023. And this is dangerous because the 6-year term of 3 commissioners, Chebukati, Professor Gulie, and Boya Molu, expire on January 18th, 2023. Now, if the Supreme Court nullified the runoff, the fresh runoff will be on 4th March 2023. But how will IEBC hold this election without a chairman and 3 commissioners? Especially since the Court of Appeal required IEBC to have a quorum of 5 commissioners. And hopefully, none of the new commissioners we've just sworn in would have run away like a Akombe during this long, protracted period. And we will be in a constitutional crisis.
Yes.
But there's a way out. Chebukati and the other 2 2017 commissioners could resign early. This will give the country ample time to replace them before the commencement of the election timelines. And since UDA is the opposition in government, they could stage protests like ODM did in 2017, demanding that IEBC resigns, IEBC mandates are back. Or Chebukati could stay in the multi-sectoral consultative forum and all stakeholders can own the process. Therefore, there will be no petitions. Anyway, it's his choice. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful or just plain lazy? Let me do a quick recap of the headlines. Daily Nation, secret card in Raila Oka talks. Standard. IBC fires warning shot on 2022 polls. Star, MPs pushing to legalize sex trade, and People Daily. Uhuru all but endorses Raila.
Can we just toss the star before we even begin the conversation?
I mean, goodness.
Gone.
PD is a winner.
No, and yeah, also please toss the one about Oka.
Okay, that's Daily Nation.
I think until they give us something,
substantive
serious to talk about,
solid.
I think they need to stop being part of the headlines altogether.
I completely agree. And I think that IBC fires a warning shot at 2022 poll. Toss it. Which gives us People Daily as our winning headline. Uhuru all but endorses Raila. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the cartoons for you. Are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and effective, or just plain lazy? Let us begin with the Daily Nation.
In the Daily Nation, we have a matatu here called Election Team. And inside the matatu, we have driving it caricatures of Chief Justice Martha Koome. We have what looks like CS Matiang'i, CS Mushero, and PS Kibisho. And then on the top of the matatu, holding a steering wheel, looks like Chebukati, and he's also accompanied by some ballot boxes. Okay, so he's taken away the steering wheels.
So this is an Akala can move.
Oh my God.
And this thing, he's like, what is it called, a crevasse?
No, it looks like they're a bit at the dip of a valley.
Yes.
They can't even get out.
They can't get out without him.
Oh man.
Really, are we honestly saying that this multi-agency, committee is predicated on the presence of Chebukati?
Well, it kind of is, because really they're the ones holding the election. They're the ones preparing for it.
But the problem is that Chebukati is one piece of the puzzle, right? Because if we know that there's going to be petitions, that's where Koome comes in.
Yeah, but that's after the election. No,
I know it's after, but we're talking about the election process, preparedness. So we can't say that one man will hold us hostage.
Tuja, you're right. Chebukati should be put on a short leash. That company he's given a tender to do election papers. Apparently, allegedly, on the day of an election in Nigeria, the company supplied ballot papers on the day of the election.
Exactly.
I know, how do you give a contract to a company that has supplied?
That's a petition. That's a nullification right there. So
waiting
my theory
to happen
just happens right there.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go on to the People Daily. I will give this cartoon, and I think we should toss it for lack of thought. Succession headache is the final hurdle, apparently, in a caricature of Uhuru Kenyatta jumping over it, saying, "This is my legacy."
Yeah, I don't think that that's the only headache that he has.
He has. And
We're talking about a person who managed to give his 8-year accomplishments in 2 hours, and Kenyans still had the audacity to complain. Really?
What exactly do you want him to do? I say toss this.
Yeah, no, definitely toss
possible.
the people daily.
Finally, we have the Star.
The Star, you have a caricature of Wafula Chebukati doing bottoms up. and he's just gotten out of the committee, the multi-sectoral committee, election preparedness, and Martha Koome, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and Kibisho are looking at him. And he's literally walking out of the election preparedness.
Jumping out.
Yeah. And the caption there is Missy Pangwingwi.
Spangwingwi.
I wondered why Ozone drew him showing us
bottoms up.
Bottoms up.
Is Ozone trying to tell us something?
He's telling us this guy is allied to William Ruto.
He's telling us without telling us.
I mean, it's obvious. UDA complained and he left almost immediately.
I mean, it is on record that when BBI was happening, BBI signature verification process was happening at Bomas, none other than Fred Chebukati's IEBC put out a tweet saying the Burning Bridges initiative verification, signature verification process.
Yeah.
He's telling us he's already, he's biased.
Definitely.
You know?
All right. Between the two cartoons,
Daily Nation and the Star, I'm partial to the Star. I think it's funny.
I quite like both of them, even though we've said that in the Daily Nation we are not going to be held hostage by a man called Chebukati.
Ozone, you got in your message. Nice signaling.
All right.
So the Star gives us our winning cartoon.
Yes.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on your TV screens. We're on Pan Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Again, just in case you forgot, our winning headline came from People Daily, and our winning cartoon came from the Star. I'll end with a quote from John Adams, and I think it's in reference to the state of the nation. I'll use it in that way, and it says that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And all this conversation about what the state of the nation is and who really has helped Uhuru Kenyatta achieve his legacy tells us that he is a leader, he's inspired others.
Absolutely.
Do have a great evening.
God bless.